Okay, so if you want to start the... Everyone, I need
Recording in progress.
please. Okay, it's time to start our special Addison Central School District Board meeting to order. The current time is 5:30, and what I'd like to do is go around and do introductions. And Jason, can we start with you?
Steve Cash.
Trisha Allen. Ellie Roth.
Ron Macklin.
Steve Orzak.
Wendy Baker.
Barb Wilson?
Mary Heather Noble. Suzanne Bauer.
Nova Glickman.
Okay, excellent. We do have a quorum. I suspect, I haven't heard from anyone, so I suspect those that aren't here will be joining us shortly. Next, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as printed.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ellie. Jason?
I'd like to move to amend the agenda to include item B.5 or C.5, reviewing bills for March 31st.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda to add a C.5 to approve the bills, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we will do that. Let me mark that down so I don't forget. Any other discussion on the agenda? Yes?
I'm just curious if Nava maybe wants to, since she's here, do a student update tonight?
I can. People would like.
So is that a C.1 then?
C.5A.
Okay, so that's a motion?
So moved.
And
Second.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor of adding an additional agenda item to have a student rep report, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so let me put that down as well. And I'll put that above the bills, I think. Okay, so any other discussion on the agenda? If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended to include approving the bills and report from our student representative, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And who, is Laura online? Okay.
I'm here, sorry I'm late.
No, you're all good, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was including you, thank you. Next on the agenda is our time for public comment. And as our typical practice, public comments are welcome and encouraged at our board meetings. And we request that people limit their comments to 3 minutes. And it's a time that you can provide us information, but it's not a two-way dialogue, right? Just so that you know that. If you're interested, I'll ask you to raise your hand. If you're attending via Zoom, to raise your Zoom hand, and we will call on you in order and allow you to speak. So, yeah, I put the clipboard up on the. Thank you. So, is there anyone in the room who's interested in making a public comment? If so, if you could raise your hand.
I can pass this around if anybody wants to sign up, or if you're all just.
And there will be a second public comment at the end of the meeting as well. Is there anyone online that would be interested in making a public comment? If so, if you could raise your Zoom hand, that would be awesome. Do you see anybody, Jason? Okay. So I'll delay here a second. Not seeing any. Then we will move to the next agenda item, which is a recommendation to approve the minutes from our March 24th board meeting. If I could get a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2025.
Second.
A second? Okay, thank you, Jess. Any discussion on the minutes? See none. I'll read the question. The motion is to approve the minutes from our March 24th, 2025 board meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Any abstentions? Okay. Next up, let's go with the report of our student representatives. So if you could,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so recently, some things that have been going on. A bunch of clubs from the school went to Phi Hall at the college and played a role in the Youth Citizen Summit. SCORE did a workshop on human rights. The Student Council did a workshop. MEAC, the Environmental Club, did a workshop. Model UN. So I think that was a really cool engagement that it connected students all over the district, especially with older students and younger students. So that was fun. And then what's coming up? Prom is in May, and right now our spring sports are in full swing. And we've had a lot of morning 5 a.m. practices. So it's not just me, it's everyone who's really tired the past from waking up at 5 a.m. So the next couple past weeks and week ahead is kind of a drag, but spring break is coming up, so that's something to look forward to. And then after spring break, I know that the IB exams are happening. So any juniors who are in year 2 classes and then seniors who are in year 2 classes are going to be balancing schoolwork with that. Just as
Excellent.
things. Yeah.
Any questions for Nava?
For what it's worth, Nava, one of my sons is a 6th grader, and he participated in the Youth Summit Day and loved it. Was both really excited about going, and then actually brought up school topics of conversation with us when he came home, which was awesome. And just really enjoyed the experience and talked about how there were high school students there running it. And that overall was really a positive and great experience. So.
Yeah, that was a huge success.
Awesome. Any others? Well, thank you. Yes. And thank you for being here after getting up at 5 probably.
Not today.
Not today. Oh, good. So next up is approval of the bills. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jason.
Okay, Suzanne and I read the bills today. There were 3 warrants that needed reviewing. McGilton Fund dated March 28th for $3,000. A general fund warrant dated March 28th for $1,083,015.38. And a payroll warrant dated March 21st for $1,448,977.28. Mary Heather, I'll send you these details. I had no questions at all, actually, for the first time in a while, and so I move that we approve the bills as reviewed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? And last week I took the action item of reviewing the bills, and I did go and do that, so and sign them. Okay, so if there's no comments or questions, all those in favor of approving the bills, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Laura, I'm assuming you said, what was your vote? I'm sorry.
I'm a little slow on the mute button, sorry.
No worries, no worries. I just didn't want to keep you out. Okay. The next agenda item is item D, and it's the operation of the Ripton Elementary School for 2025 and 26 and beyond. And what I'm gonna do before we really get started on this, I'm gonna hand it over to Dr. Baker to say a few words.
Just a reminder of context, as we have come through the month of March, we've had sort of a number of updates as things have gotten a little bit clearer with projected enrollment for both the 25-26 year and the 26-27 year. So when we were together earlier in March, one of the things that the board had hoped we could accomplish is to spend some time in Ripton, just talking, with community around sort of where we are, and we've done that, and had a rich discussion. It was widely reported in the Addison Independent. Those of us that were able to take part of that discussion, I think, we found that it was nice to understand the rich history of education that is taking place in the town of Ripton for its students over time, and that I think we're all in this place of trying to figure out something that just we're running up against challenges around, and so that was shared. We also were able to review options, with an attorney, so that the materials that the board has that were made available as the packet include some options for consideration, and these options are all things that you are able to take action on within the bounds of your legal responsibility. So that's been vetted to ensure that you are able to do a number of things. The options that are presented in a way that tries to lead you through the discussion in some sort of an orderly process. As I've shared, the most that we would have at Ripton Elementary School next year would be 2 classes of 10 for 20 students, a 2-3 and a 4-5. I have reconfirmed with parents who have expressed the desire to have their student attend education in a different way, where there's just different offerings available and a different size educational community to partake in. Those parents have reconfirmed their desire, even understanding that this is a process that we're doing together, and so. If you were to take a route where you were to move by the options on the beginning of your page, either considering not operating the school for a couple different reasons, or thinking about allowing parents to have a different option, you would be looking at an enrollment of 14. A class of 6 and a class of 8 in the school. So just a kind of a reminder of here's where we are from the operational side. We are hoping that you will be able to give us clear guidance as to whether it is your intention to support the operation of the building for the 25-26 school year, as we're in the process of just allocating staff, hiring staff. We've, Susan Ogilvie has let us know of her retirement after 33.5 years. We, will need to make a change in Melissa Giroux's assignment if we operate the building, because she, would need to not teach students for the 4th year in a row. So, we would need to provide her with a different teaching opportunity, and we'd need to make sure we've got staffing in place and have good lead time to be able to do that if it's your desire that the building operates, with either enrollment projection. Low enrollment projections are projected to continue in 25-26 as well. So as we've discussed, unfortunately this isn't a circumstance where we just have a blip in a moment, right now. So we're happy to provide any other information that you need, and hopefully this provides you with some structure to be able to determine how best to advise us as we move forward.
Before we kind of move into our portion of the agenda, are there any questions for Dr. Baker?
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Dr. Baker, you said 25, 26, and then you said, and then for the next year, you said 25, 26. Did you mean 26 and 27?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I
Thank
just
you.
wasn't sure. I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify.
Yep, yep, thank you.
Ellen?
Just to go back to something that I think came up last week, Wendy, just to confirm my understanding that particularly now with the news about a change in the principal at Ripton School, are there any staff or teachers or teaching staff or otherwise at Ripton School currently who would be returning next year if the school stayed operational?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind expanding on that? Who
So there are a number of support staff that are there that, you know, certainly, there, we would have work for. There are, there's food service staff, there are professional staff in the student services area. Yes, you know, is the answer to that. You know, right now, we know that we would need to, you know, fill, 2 teaching positions. And in terms of classroom teachers, the way we typically think of them, you know, and choose an administrative structure. So the administrative structure that I chose, I recommended to you and you approved for the rest of this year was to have an associate principal there and then ask Bjarke to serve as an acting principal because he already knows ACSD's systems and so on and so forth, and that would just be easier to navigate. Roxanne Green, who served as the associate principal, also serves in a role as interventionist and so on and so forth. So depending upon your choice, you know, we would be looking into what administrative oversight model would work best and determine how best to take that action.
Any other questions? Yes, Steve?
Is it the intention of the administration to allocate the full $1.2 million that's been allocated to Ripton in the coming school year?
It would be our intention to staff the building operationally as we need to, as the board's wish, you know. I mean, there would be 20 students there or 14 students there, and we'll ensure that they have this educational supports that they need to be successful.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, great. So the next part of this part of the agenda is for the board to make a decision and as to what direction that we want to have happen at Ripton, or we believe should happen at Ripton. And what I'd like to do for this section, listed here, we do have 4 items that are listed, but you may have another item that's listed as well. These 4 items are also what's kind of included on this decision tree that we put together just to kind of help. But you don't have to start at the top necessarily. We could start at the top. It's really up to the board. So the way I would like to conduct this part of the meeting is per Robert's Rules of Order, so that someone makes a motion, and we then have discussion, assuming it's seconded, on that particular motion, and then we do a vote. If that vote fails, then we'll take another motion, and till we really exhaust the different items, and no decision is actually a decision, right, in this particular case, if you get down to the bottom of this chart, right? Mm-hmm. So, if someone has a motion that they would like to make, okay, Steve, you were first, so then.
Okay. I move that the board initiate the process for closing the Ripton School for the 25-26 school year as outlined in Article 14 of the Charter.
And I'm gonna write this down. And is there a second for that?
Second.
And just give me a second so I can repeat this. Okay. Any discussion? Ellen?
I'm a little confused by the closure for the 25-26 school year, invoking Article 14. I'm assuming, Steve, but can you confirm, you're talking about a permanent closure, not just for the next school year?
Yes.
Okay.
Article
So-
14 talks about permanently closing the schools.
Right, just the use of the school, attaching it to the school year made me wonder if it was about just for 1 year or not.
Just
Right.
clarification.
Just
Oh, no.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, questions? Jason?
It concerns me to close the Ripton school, one, because I reviewed the bills and I know how much money we spend on various facilities that we rent, thousands of dollars a month, in Addison County. So if we decide not to operate Ripton Elementary as an elementary school, I think there's still significant value in the facility and keeping the facility as part of the district, and maybe it serves other purposes and, you know, replaces one of our rented facilities, so that's one thing to consider.
Go ahead.
Just to offer a quick clarification around that operationally, it is not our intention to operate either of our rented facilities for the next school year.
Okay.
Regardless of the Ripton facility.
Correct, regardless of the Ripton decision,
Okay, I'm gonna wait and see if there's someone else first. Make sure everyone has a chance to speak first. Anyone else? And if not, I'll go back to Ellen. Okay, Ellen?
I mean, this is previewing a motion I would have made, but I think it's a shame to permanently close the building now when there's so much influx around the state and an opportunity to potentially move students from the building for a year and explore other options, and give ourselves as a board, as well as staff, as well as the community of Ripton and the families in Ripton, an opportunity to be more involved in this process. It might arrive at the same place, but I think more time, while still sort of effectively moving kids, at least for next year, feels like a compromise that is compassionate and still practical and worth considering before we initiate permanent closure.
Any, yes?
I guess
another-
I would just echo that sentiment as well as Jason's sentiment. I think while I agree operating the school with the current projected enrollment and even that into the next year, operationally it doesn't seem like a viable option. However, as a building and as an educational purpose building, it seems like that's something that we probably do need to take some time deliberating about as a board, and perhaps working with the community, and knowing that there has been some discussion at the state level of the possibility of funding to help communities in this circumstance. It might be generous to use time in our favor.
Ron, and then Steve.
I guess to have any idea about, how to vote on Steve's, on the motion that's been proposed, I would need to know a little bit about what the consequences would be. So for example, are there any ideas within the community in Ripton about what they would like to do with the building? If the closure process were to go through its, all of its permutations and to pass. So I just, at this point, have very little information about what the consequences would be of closing that school. And it's my third meeting, so that's maybe understandable. But if anybody has any kind of input on that, whether that's kind of on the board or Ripton community members who would like to comment, perhaps in our second public comment period if they have a chance, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Ron. Steve?
Yeah, I have 3 points. I think the question of what's going on in the larger educational kind of environment in the state that two other people mentioned is definitely something we should contemplate, just, you know, what does some of that mean going forward? I also will make the point that I'm not sure closure or not closure is the imminent issue. I think there's staff and kids and families that are trying to make decisions for the, what would it be, 25-26 school year, that need to get this sorted out. I think we could probably spend a fair amount of time talking about closure, and that is not necessarily the immediate issue in my mind. The last point I'll raise is that I think due to good reasons, right now, some of this is based on parents' desires of where they want their kids to go. And I think the administration has engaged in this situation to try and sort it out, and so that's part of the numbers that we have right now. However, I'm also aware that not every school in ACSD gets an email asking their kids where they would like to go next year. And so, like, I just think in terms of decision making, I think we all need to make some more of those decisions and not let this issue kind of make the decision for us. Those are my three.
Others? And Laura, feel free to raise your hand. Okay. Are we ready for the question?
I mean, so I have a
Jamie?
question that is, of course, Robert's rules. So I would like to make another motion.
Okay, so.
Of course, I don't know how to do that, and I'm reading the sheet here.
So are you going to amend, are you going to?
I don't think it's an amendment thing.
So then,
Then you'll need
Then
to
we
wait
should-
until
You have
after
to
we
wait until this
take
is off
action
the,
on this one.
yes.
Yeah.
I have
So
this.
do we have to vote on this?
Yes.
To get it off, or can
Yes.
we?
Yes.
No, you can rescind
No,
it.
you
Well,
can
you
table
can,
it,
yeah,
or
you
you
can
can rescind
table it. But it will take a vote to do that.
we need to tie off this motion
Yes.
one way or another
Right.
before we enter into another motion.
Understand.
Ellie?
So, could I make a motion to table that until we've heard some of the other ideas that people?
We could do that, so to table or postpone consideration. And it just needs a majority vote. So you can make a motion for our chart here by saying, I move to postpone this matter until later this evening. And it needs a second, it's debatable, and we vote, and it's the majority. Okay?
So, I move to postpone consideration of the motion on the table until after we have heard other motions that may be brought up this evening.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Any discussion? Steve?
So if we table this now, we vote yes on something else, we would have to still vote
Right.
on this
Right,
later.
exactly.
All right.
Steve?
By voting on something else does not preclude this
Right,
motion.
we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. Yes, because it's just been tabled, it hasn't been, it's just been postponed until a little bit later. Any other discussion, debate around the motion that LA has proposed and has been seconded? Yes.
I would just suggest that it might be okay for us to take a vote on it, and if there is reluctance to accept this motion, then you ought to vote that way, and then we can proceed on to the next option, so.
So by the postponement or the original
The
motion?
original, so.
Okay, so right now, though, we have to deal with the postponement,
Right.
a motion first.
I guess I'm arguing against postponing.
I know, there you go,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I think that we should just take
Yeah.
a vote on the original motion.
Yeah. Yes, Jamie?
So I guess my vote in, my vote in favor of the postponement is that I guess I feel like there's a few things that need to be discussed before I feel like I can vote responsibly, I suppose. And so voting on one that I think I don't like, but maybe I could be pushed to like, if the other ones seem less interesting to me down the road, seems like the process that I would like. And so that's why I support Ellie's motion.
Any other discussion on the motion that's currently on the floor, which is to postpone the original motion, which is to initiate the process of closure per Article 14.
Laura has her
And
hand.
Laura, thank you.
So we can vote down multiple motions about what to do in Ripton. We don't have to just vote one down or just come back to one yes vote. We can have multiple motions over the course of the evening for what to do. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with Mary Heather that we either need to vote to amend the motion on the table or we need to vote it down so that we can move on to another motion.
Any other discussion or debate on the motion on the table, or on the floor, which is to postpone the original motion of initiating the process of closure per Article 14, the revised Article 14? If so, raise your hand. Any other discussion? Ellen?
I understand, I think, why we're doing this so procedurally by Robert's Rules of Order. It feels really crummy to be talking about closing a school without more discussion. It just does. So I hear the idea of moving through the motions and following the rules, and I just think that this is a grave decision that we have talked about, and also never to the deciding moment that we're at tonight. And so I'm with Jamie. I don't think there's any harm, and I would have loved for this to be more of an open discussion leading to motions, because it just feels like the human way to engage with really big decisions, so that we can hear each other and learn from each other, and hopefully as a group of people come to a path forward through a very difficult situation that feels well-reasoned, outside of email. So, I know we're extending this other motion on a motion, but, I would love more discussion about this decision that we're about to make.
Okay. So right now, though, I have to be a stickler. We have a motion on the floor to postpone discussion on the original motion, which was to initiate the closure process per Article 14. Are we ready for the question for that one?
Yes.
Okay, so then all in favor that,
May I request that these be roll call votes for all
Yes.
of these motions?
yes, that's a great idea, thank you. So we will do a roll call,
Just to clarify, we were doing the conversation of tabling.
yes, yes,
That's what we're doing.
postponing until later. So the motion is that we postpone discussion on the original motion, which was to initiate the process of closure per Article 14 of the Ripton Elementary School to later in the evening. All those in favor, what we're gonna do is just go down the row. So Laura, I'm gonna start with you, if you don't mind.
Nay.
Nay, okay. Jason?
Nay.
Yay.
Steve?
Yay.
Tricia?
Nay.
Jess?
Yay.
Jamie?
Yay.
Yay.
Ellie? Ron?
Yay.
Steve?
Yay.
And Mary Heather?
Nay.
And Suzanne?
Yay.
So we'll wait, and Mary Heather will give us the tally.
8 yays.
Okay. So, the yeas have it. So what we're going to do is postpone discussion on this particular article, or this particular motion, until later this evening. Is there another, Jason? And, yeah.
I had also wanted to make a motion, I thought it was right after Steve, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think that's fair, because she had raised her hand before.
I would like to move that I wrote it down, so I'm hoping that I get it right, that we transfer students to a new school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use of the Ripton school or building. That we allow parents and families and caretakers of those students to indicate their preference for a new school that their student would attend. That transportation that may be provided to various schools be communicated to those parents. That administrators would ultimately approve new school assignments based on the capacity of receiving schools and transportation needs and ability to provide. Taking care to avoid any D6 conflicts or other conflicts with ACSD policy.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion, and I don't know if you could give me the text, because I could not write all that down. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can, yes, I have it jotted down in notes, which I'll write it up on a piece of paper and give it to
Okay.
her.
So while she's doing that, because there's just no way I would get all the detail for that, that motion. So in the meantime, is there discussion that would, that folks have? Would anyone like to make a comment on the motion that is currently there as best as you remember it?
Well, so I think clarifying if Ellen has half an ear, it is not operating the Ripton school next year,
Yes.
but retaining it within the district. Students would be sent to another school, not as a cohort, and the sending would be with parent preferences and superintendent final decision, superintendent approval. And then transportation.
Yeah, not guaranteeing transportation.
Okay.
And not guaranteeing that preferences are met, it would have to take into account the capacity of the receiving schools and classes, at least to consider D6.
So no cohort and no guaranteed transportation.
No, though I sort of imagine there could be transportation to some locations more than others. Middlebury being one, but.
Yeah.
Jamie?
I think what Ellen said basically captures some of the motion I was gonna make. Hers was more detailed, but I think the spirit of this, actually, I'll just speak for my own self. The spirit of what Ellen said for me is useful. I think that I think it makes sense to transfer students out of Ripton next year for a number of reasons that many of us have discussed. The first and foremost being questions relating to the sort of status or health or whatever of the educational environment. I also think that parents have expressed, families have expressed in many forms, the desire and need to have some flexibility with that. If we do that, especially at this time, and that offering families some options there is useful. My personal feeling is that it does make sense to offer families the option to go to Salisbury or Middlebury or Mary Hogan with transportation at the very least. And I think if the intervening time between now and, I don't know, next March, when we have another election, I think part of Ellen's motion also was about trying to figure out what to do with the building, and then initiating a plan of closure if that is definitely the right thing to do. So to me, it's like, it's a staged conception, and a cautious one that may or may not end in exactly the motion Steve made, but nonetheless sort of honors the process we're in of being a little slow, a little cautious, but still makes a decision that's important for the end of this school year, which I also think is important. So I see the motion as valuable for those reasons.
Steve, or,
Well, I went next, so if
okay,
you, no, I mean after.
and Jason, I knew you were gonna make
There
a
were other
motion,
hands over
so,
there first.
yeah, Jason
I
or,
don't have a comment yet.
okay, Steve?
Nothing yet, Adi.
And
Laura's
Laura,
hand is up.
do you have a comment?
I was just gonna say that I have some equity concerns when it comes to offering parents the choice to be able to send their kid to whatever school they choose, and also not providing transportation. And I think for the ease of both social transitions and equity issues, concerns, what have you, I think we need to be really thoughtful about whether we give them two options or one option, or, well, two options with transportation, or just say, this is your school that you're going to be assigned to next year. And just making sure that we're not playing into some equity issues there. So, yeah.
Okay, so Mary Heather, and then Tricia, then Ron.
So I agree with Laura about the equity concerns. I think, although it seems like a sort of compassionate offering to families in Ripton, I am concerned about, I still just have concerns about equity and choice. And when I was listening to the education committees in the House, their discussion of potential legislation to address this very issue, they were pretty clear about leaning into designating the school. If you have a school that's failing to meet enrollment standards, and kind of the sort of what happens then, the process that would be followed, and the conversations that were happening during that committee really kind of leaned toward designation, obviously for operational ease, but also for equity. I just have some concerns about setting the standard to allow parents to choose where they want to go when we don't really have the infrastructure in our district for that. So I have real reservations with that. I don't think I can support it.
Are you thinking of amending it, or?
No, I think we can
Okay.
continue to discuss,
Okay.
maybe,
Okay,
I don't know.
okay.
So in the same vein, I feel it's more in line with our current set of policies to designate a school or even two schools, depending on where we go. And then families who have a reason beyond that can follow the C30 application for reconsideration for their personal circumstances. And that works within our current policies, and what we already have set up. So, I mean, I feel like we are working towards an amendment, towards your very well thought out, thank you, motion. I don't know that I'm clear enough yet to voice an amendment, but I would encourage an amendment towards assigning schools as opposed to open choice.
So I'm gonna let Ron go and then I'll have you, you can ask your question.
I mean, hopefully this will tee you off, Dr. Baker. I just have a very brief question. What, does the district have kind of a contingency plan for what to do with the Ripton Elementary School building if it were to remain within the district but not operating 25-26?
There are a number of options, you know, that we could consider. You know, I think we would want to do so in collaboration with the town. You know, given that you know, that's an important community asset in that way, and educational uses, you know, that we can think of would probably take both the facility and the grounds into consideration. However, it's not in the easiest geographic location for some of the educational uses. So that is, you know, that's a consideration. I'm gonna let you ask your question and then we'll go back to Ella. Yeah, just a clarifying question. So right now we have kindergartners and first graders who have been assigned to Salisbury as part of our D6 part. And I'm not sure if in the context of the motion you're thinking about, if those students would also be included in whatever it is that grades 2 through 5 are able to do, if that is different from grades 2 through 5 joining Salisbury, you know, as a cohort. So that's just a clarifying question so that I'm understanding where you're intending to go.
I don't know if this is, just to think out loud a little bit, Wendy, if this will answer that question exactly. My intention is to give us more time, all the collective us more time to figure out the future of Ripton, and also to provide the people and the families most impacted by the loss of their community school, at least for one school year, some options and some agency within this decision. So I think I had been imagining it as the whole of the community, of the Ripton school community, right? So I had not sort of decided like, but for K1, you know, I was thinking like, we're essentially changing the trajectory of this school community for at least a year. So in my mind, it would be all families having that option. I was going to offer an amendment that might sort of speak to some of this, which is based on what you were saying, Tricia. I was thinking that maybe an amendment would be to transfer students to a new school year, to enable feasibility study, to offer families and caretakers an option of schools to which transportation can be provided, and to indicate their preference between those schools, and then to provide, to ultimately have the decision around assignment remain with the administration, because I think that it's important that there be an understanding of what's realistic and other measures beyond transportation. But just to sort of constrain a little bit, but still, again, try to get to what my intention is, which is in a very difficult situation, allowing some people who are not getting to make this decision, whose lives will be most affected by it, which is also an equity issue. We're about to potentially remove a school from a community, so a lot of people are facing a different equity threshold. And yeah, just to give people some ability to have voice in this decision.
So I could offer a little bit of information if it's helpful.
Okay, sure.
Relative to transportation, it is, we can transport, there are buses that bring students, you know, very close, you know, to, already close to the Salisbury line, you know, in that way. So extending those buses to be able to pick up students in Ripton is not an operational problem. Students riding a bus to Salisbury would be far less likely to encounter secondary students than students riding a Middlebury bus. So if students riding a Middlebury bus would likely be on the bus with secondary students, which is a consideration.
What do you mean by secondary students?
High school
Middle
and middle
school.
school.
Middle school,
high
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
So, another consideration is that, you know, of the families, you know, that I've gotten to know, you know, there are 5 families that are requesting, you know, that have been in touch to request, that their child be given a different type of an opportunity. Some of those families are choosing Salisbury as a place to go. There are, you know, another, 14 families that have not spoken up or given a preference. If you are not moving the cohort together, it's important that you understand that students will be separated from their friend groups potentially by the choices of their parents, which are made for good reason, but sometimes related to convenience of, you know, jobs and so on and so forth, right? The things that the adults have to decide in life, you know, and that's a different experience for a student than being able to travel with your current friend groups that you have during the school day, all to a single place. I think so. You know, the guidance counselors among us would likely recommend that this community stays together to ensure that the transition for the students is easiest. Not speaking to, you know, the other things that you're speaking about, I thought that would maybe be important to offer. I think that was all the clarifying information related to what you were saying. It just came to mind. If there's anything else, let me know.
And, go ahead. Suzanne, you haven't spoken, so.
So, one, the district does not have a school choice policy, and so to grant parents requests to go to a variety of different schools would need a school choice policy, which we do not have. And that was one of the, you know, you go down that road and then you open it up to every other parent within the district that may want to do school choice. And then that could then decimate other schools. So, you know, I would not want to move one group to one school and another group to another school. These are kids that have grown up together, they're friends, their parents are friends. So I would caution us about picking and choosing where we would allow the students to go. They should all go together, in my opinion. The other piece is, there are, even if some of these families have been able to vocalize that 14 students or however many there were before they started thinking about wanting to move their students wasn't working for them, there are probably other parents that don't have the means, and I'm just surmising, that may not have the means to be able to say, this isn't working for my child. So this could also cause an equity issue if we choose to leave the school open with just 14 students. The other piece is, we started the night with some questions around Article 14, which does require not only for the board to send the information and the question out to our community members, but it also requires engagement with the community in which the school is, as well as engagement with all the other communities within the district. There's nothing in Article 14 that says it has to be done immediately. I mean, it actually says that after you do your community engagement and after the board votes, that it needs to be brought to either the annual meeting or a special meeting of the district. If you call a special meeting of the district, every single town has to pay for that vote. And that gets expensive when you print ballots and you gotta bring in your ballot clerks and yada, yada, yada. So there's no saying that it wouldn't take us a year to actually vote to close. I guess is one thing I'm trying to get people to understand. But I definitely would not want to divvy up the Ripton student body into different schools, they really should have the opportunity to go as a group with their friends to one school. And I'm sure that probably the Ripton community has already thought of things that they might like to do with that building, because I know how much they love that building. So they might not have said it out loud, but they might be thinking about it.
Mary Heather and then Tricia.
Yeah, I guess regarding the designation versus choice, I agree, and I think one of the responsibilities we have as a board is to consider, you know, the precedent that we make. Obviously, if we're talking about this motion in terms of a one-year action for this 1 year, and if we were to allow students and families to pick whichever school they want, and then if we come to the next year, we're kind of at that decision point again. We're at that crossroads again. And it seems to me that we ought to be thinking as a cohort, and where a cohort from a place ought to be assigned to a school. And if we're not willing to think about that, we're kind of skirting our responsibility, unless we're going both feet into school choice as a district. It just seems strange to me to decide, you know, in this particular area, we're gonna go with school choice because of the circumstances. Recognizing that we're gonna be at this again next year, having a conversation about whether or not Ripton should operate or whether it should close. And those students will need to go somewhere, and students from that community will need to have a designated school. And people who have property in that area are gonna need to know their house, if somebody buys it, where do those students go? I think that's our responsibility as a board, and I think we need to be thinking about that, thinking about the long term as well, and not just this 2025, 26 year. I think if we just think about it as for just next year, with the hope that I just don't think we're doing our job. This job and this decision is in front of us now. I think our education community is expecting us to make a decision, and I think we need to be thinking about the long-term decisions. And for me, deciding where those students go is part of our responsibility, and I think they should be treated as a cohort.
Okay, Tricia and
So I just want to reemphasize that we have in C30 a way for parents to appeal a placement, right? That is within our current policies, and there are already procedures and such enacted around that. So I very much understand what you're saying, Ellen, about like this is an unprecedented time right now, and we really want to come together as a ACSD community and support those people who are in a tough position right now. And I think as a board, we already have a set structure of policies, and you know, we are currently finding the places where those are falling short, and we're trying to work our way through that, but that doesn't mean that we disregard the rest of our policies and the rest of our structure. To what Suzanne was saying about Article 14, amended Article 14, just as it comes in relation to eventually voting yes or no to this amendment and our tabled, or motion and our tabled motion, Article 14, just for clarification, the procedure is we would have, if we had a majority board vote saying yes, we're going to initiate the closure process, then there would be at least 3 community meetings, one of which was held in Ripton. There's no designated timeline for they have to, you know, it's not they have to be done within the next 2 weeks, it's just they need to happen before calling a vote or having a full vote. So
of the board.
of the board and
First the
First
board,
the board.
a supermajority of the board, and then
Okay.
it goes to the
so the
community.
board votes twice.
Yes,
And so once the board has had that vote, then it goes to all of the communities. Okay.
Yeah.
So how I missed the second board vote when I was going through it. Okay. And so at any of those points,
Well,
so
we can't.
if the second board vote, the board could then say, hey, no, we were wrong, we don't actually want to close it. And in that case, we would come back to the drawing board. Or we say, yes, we do think this is the way to go forward, but then the towns could say, no, just, we disagree, we don't want to let go of the school. And then we'd be back to the drawing board. So a vote tonight to say yes to closure would be really saying we're starting this
Initiating
process.
Right.
And would mean we would still have to make these same decisions about, okay, so where are the kids going
Right.
this coming year? Okay.
And can I just clarify?
Thank you for the
The
clarification.
reason that there's sort of these two votes, like we can't decide as a board and vote with a supermajority because the public meetings and the public engagement must
Has
happen
first.
before the board votes
Yeah.
on school closure.
Yep.
So that we just,
Oh, that makes sense.
So Steve and Ellen, and I'm gonna let Steve go first and then Ellen.
Yeah, I would like a point of clarification as far as Robert's rules. I believe you had the floor and spoke, and then spoke again.
I know.
My
So I'm
apologies.
just
Yes.
kind of trying to
Right.
understand.
It
what-
was a point
Yes,
of
my
order.
apologies.
that
It
would
was
be
a point of order.
yeah.
So, at the base of it, this motion is something that I can get behind. I don't know about quite all of it, but at the heart of it, it addresses the realities. You know, as I said before, people need answers for 25 and 26. Parents, staff, and even at this point, kids. So I think we can spend all night talking about closure. We could probably spend more than that. But there are some things at hand that we need to get sorted out pretty quick. So I can appreciate that. And I don't support this because this is a space that I want to be. If I had two parts, a head and a heart, this is a decision from the head. That's just where it's at for me. But it's a reality. So let's get on with that, in my opinion. I'm not sure that I've ever been shown that Ripton School is failing. Does it have more or less problems than any other school that exists in this district? I don't know. Is it pushing up against a couple of policies? Seems like it is. I just want to make sure that as we go through this, we're protective of staff and children that are in this mix, and part of that is making a decision so we can move this ahead. And then, this is my third board meeting in this role, trying to figure it out. One of the first things that was said when I kind of sat in this chair is that time is on our side. And for the decision we have to make, time is not on our side. In the longer range, I think it might be good to think about the long game on this. With everything going on in the state, you know, are we just having a conversation about Ripton in a year? Are we having a conversation about other places? And precedent is important, and I think if you do it right, it can hopefully limit some of the trauma and things that come to it. So I would really like to be a part of a board that whatever we're gonna do here, we do it right. So if we have to do it again, we don't have to relive those same mistakes.
Ellen?
I just wanted to clarify that no parent would choose where their kid goes. They would state a preference. The assignment of the school and the designation of where that student goes would remain with our administrators. I think this should be a precedent for when we're talking very, very seriously about moving a whole school community out of its school. I'm okay with that. I don't think it opens the door to universal school choice that means every school gets trained, though I totally appreciate that concern. I think we're a strong and smart enough board to craft future policy or to avoid those realities. I also think a lot of that's gonna get decided for us. And I'm, again, very comfortable with these exceptional situations where whole school communities are potentially being relocated, to allow parents to state a preference, which could very well be about their family situation, what works better for them. I actually would never presume to tell another parent what's socially and emotionally better for their kid. I believe that these parents know their kids, they know their community, and that if they can state a preference around what might be better for their child, that it's worth considering in making the final determination around where those kids go.
So, just to be clear, since there's only one of us that's the administrator in this situation, if that is the nature of where this is going, then all the students would be assigned to go to Salisbury, because that is the standard. It is that you assign students who are displaced for whatever reason, whether it's a policy displacement, a facilities displacement, a weather displacement to the next closest geographic option that is viable. Salisbury can take all the students, they would be in single grade classrooms, so that's a viable option for them. It is also the most efficient option for the district relative to transportation and staffing and so on and so forth. So that is where the cohort would be assigned, and given that I would need to, my actions are governed by board policy, then I would utilize C30, which is the opportunity for parents to say this creates either an educational or a personal hardship, of significance for our family, and we would like you to review the option for us to go elsewhere. So that would be the process, that would be the outcome and the process that this administrator would be using to approach the situation that you just outlined. And I feel it's important for me to be clear about that, because if that's not where you're headed, we're all on the same page at the beginning of where we are. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, Steve.
Was there-
Jess, I'm sorry, I didn't see you raise your hand.
Yeah, my comment was about designation as well. And like Salisbury, like you said, would be the kind of based on standards of displacement, the next school. I know you said it would change to single grades. Do you think, I guess I just spent some time with the materials from the annual meeting that kind of breaks down educators in the building, support staff, like what's the amount of nurse that's there and librarian and all of that. Does it feel, because if all the kids ended up going to Salisbury, I mean, I know that some could kind of appeal, families could appeal using C30, it would bring the total up to like 94-ish in the building. So I'm just thinking about, do you think that they'll be able to have a full-time librarian and more time nurse, like to bring it up to the closer standard of, like Cornwall's projected to be 84 next year, so this would be the second largest elementary school after Mary Hogan. So I'm just thinking about bandwidth for all of those, just outside of classroom teachers that really make the day what it is for kids.
Yep, so if the students from Ripton were to join the students in Salisbury, then we would need to put an additional K-6 licensed teacher in the building in order to achieve single grades K through 5. We would also be increasing arts, movement, Spanish, guidance, and library time in order to be able to and nurse, in order to be able to meet the staffing rules that we've already discussed in the budget development process. So they would be receiving additional supports that relate to those students that are attending and the number of classrooms that would be there. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Steve?
Four things that I wanted to mention. First of all is, I've said to this board many times that choice is a very thorny issue for me in terms of equity and in terms of how the district is structured. We do not currently use choice, and there are lots of good reasons behind that to throw out choice as just part of this solution seems a little hasty, in my opinion. And the motion as worded does not limit it. It says anywhere. So what stops a parent from saying, I want to go to Weybridge and you can pay for it? If we're paying for transportation. If we're not paying for transportation, we get back to the equity issue. What parent who doesn't have the means to do it is going to drive to Weybridge every day to be able to do that? And I know we had a little experiment with choice. I know that the numbers were far too small to get any kind of a feedback on that, whether those issues came up about equity. Were they wealthy parents? Were they parents that were from families that had IEPs? Were they from families that were racially diverse? So we don't have that information, so the jury's still out on that. And I believe that choice is a bigger issue than to just throw it into this motion, in my opinion. The second thing I wanted to talk about was longevity of placement. The way we've handled this in the past is that if a student is moved for whatever reason, the expectation is that they will stay in that school for the rest of the time that they're in that school. So if we move someone, if someone chooses to go to Weybridge, they're at Weybridge for the next 4 years or 2 years or 3 years. And that has been the precedent, and we would break that if we said, well, this is only for this year. I mean, I don't want to get involved in a discussion about how disruptive it is to put a kid in school here 1 year, move them here another year, and move them to third place a third year. I think that the idea of longevity of placement is something that the district should maintain. That once that student is placed, they should be placed there for the remainder of the time that they're in that level of schooling. The third thing is transportation costs. I've heard from Dr. Baker, you said something like it's $10,000 a student to do something outside of the structure that we already have.
I'm not sure I would want that to affect this because I don't remember saying 10,000.
Okay,
So
okay.
I just want to make sure we're dealing with factual numbers.
Okay, and we are already making the we're already making the placement of K1 in Salisbury. That transportation has been allocated already. It would, to offer other choices, probably will increase transportation costs. And around transportation costs, well, maybe not cost, but we have students coming into Ripton from Granville and Hancock.
One
In all of Ripton?
One elementary school student, yes.
Oh, okay.
In
I thought
Ripton.
there was
Ripton.
one in the K1, but there were more. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to be sensitive about the fact that they're already coming across the mountain, and to have them go lots of different places adds to their transportation time. And the final thing is the issue about the cohort. The way that we have done this is that we have designated a cohort. And when a student is in a cohort, there are lots of educational reasons to keep them in a cohort, and you need a really good reason to remove them from a cohort, especially when kids are this age. So I believe that, I mean, Ron said it, you know, that when you place students in a school, that's where they go. And the parents have to have a really good reason to move them. This seems more like the choices being offered in the motion as we're discussing, that could potentially break up a cohort that I don't think is a sound educational decision. So I would want to see an amendment on this motion that would remove the choice options and replace it with the students be moved as a cohort to Salisbury.
Are you proposing a motion?
I would rather people, if they had anything more to say, but
Okay.
I will be happy to propose an amendment.
Okay. So is there more discussion? Tricia?
My question is more around amendments and structure.
Okay.
So I know Ellen's initial motion was multi-layered.
Yes.
And went through the thought process. Would it be possible to make a motion to edit down the initial motion, so it's, the first vote would be on transfer students to a designated school for next school year to enable a feasibility analysis, So we get that vote done, and if it's yes, then we move on to how do we handle the students and transportation? Is that
Could you amend it to just the first part?
right? Like,
Right.
could I propose?
Yeah.
Is
Right.
that within
Yes,
the
yes.
the bounds
It's
of
yeah.
Robert's rules
It
that we
has-
are dealing
yeah.
with right now?
Right, it has to be,
Okay.
you know, the intent, you can't totally change out what the motion was, but
Right.
if there is an aspect of that motion
Right.
that you wanna remove or substitute different words for, that kind of thing, you can do that.
Okay, so and let me know if
Also,
this needs to be
If you designate, then you can be silent on transportation, because if you have designated, just like your C30 policy, you know, that these students are now over here, it is assumed that we will be providing transportation.
Right.
So
Might
you
make it
designate a
simpler.
place.
Yeah.
May I ask a procedural question?
Yes.
We have the language of the motion in front of us to be able to read it, and this is a rather complex one.
Yes.
Would it be possible to make copies and distribute them to the board so that we can talk specifically about the motion that's on the table rather than,
I have no problem with doing that,
because I
Yeah.
think that would help.
yeah.
But is Tricia about to make an amendment?
Well, Jason, does this master computer have a camera?
Well, we have
Can you just type it in?
we have a copy machine
I
right
suppose-
over here.
There's a copy machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Or we can just read it out loud, perhaps.
I can
Yeah.
read it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me read it again.
Okay.
We'll start there. The motion that is currently under discussion on the floor, that has been first and seconded, is as follows. Transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School. Allow parents, families, caretakers to indicate their preference for the new school their students will attend. ACSD administrators would approve final school assignments considering family preferences as well as the capacity of the receiving schools taking care to uphold ACSD policy, including D6. Transportation may be provided but not guaranteed. Get it all?
Can I look over your shoulder and make a?
Yes, you
motion
may.
to amend? Okay. If I may.
Here.
So I make a motion to amend down to, transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of further use of the RES building,
Period.
period.
So another way would be to strike,
Just keep the first sentence.
yes, to just basically strike the words that continue, allow parents, families, caretakers to indicate their preference for a new school, so on and so forth.
Yes.
Did you
Mary
say a
Heather has her
specific-
hand up.
Yes, Mary Heather.
So before you wrap up your
Yes.
motion, do
Please.
you want to specify a designated ACSD school?
So
Because it says another ACSD school.
it says, so in my mind, that would be our next discussion point.
Right, kind of like the decision tree did.
Right. So this is really just, are we moving students out of
Right.
Ripton next year or not?
For the school year.
Is really what the question for next school year.
Yeah.
That's really the question
Okay.
that this would address.
Can I have a?
I will second that motion.
Okay, a second. Discussion on the amendment, which would basically only capture the first sentence, which is to transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use of the RES or Ripton Elementary School.
Mary
Discussion, yes, Mary Heather.
I think that the motion needs to have specificity around the other ACSD school. I think if we're going to have a motion,
Are you, okay,
yes,
are you proposing?
I can. I-
Another motion?
Well, we can't vote on another motion.
No,
I know.
You can have more than
Right.
one amendment. you can have an amendment to amendment.
Right, but you have to pass each amendment and have the second
Right.
to each amendment.
Right.
Okay.
And so I will say,
So,
well,
or she can rescind
Chair,
hers.
if I
Yes.
may. My thought was, this, as I said, is really the question of, are we moving kids out or are we keeping a small group? So this is the decision of, moving the kids out of Ripton for next year. Then we would need future motions that deal with, are we designating a school? Are they going as a cohort? And then, as you said, if we are designating, then transportation is wrapped in.
And you're transferring grades 2 through 5.
Yep.
Out of the Ripton Elementary School.
Yep.
Specifically. Because there may be other students that arrive there for a different educational purpose
Yes.
next year, but
Right.
that's specifically what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
So Mary Heather, just for clarity and for what you're saying, you wish that the motion had included, instead of another school, that it had said a designated school?
I do, just because I think in terms of the public record and the decisions we're leaving in our wake, it's cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one person on the board, so.
Ellen?
It just occurs to me that, so we're voting to amend a motion that's not been voted on.
Yes.
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 So Tricia took a red pen and cut out a couple of sentences.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we amend to keep this first sentence, the immediate next amendment could be what you're speaking
Yep.
to, Mary Heather. I hear
Yeah.
you on
Yep.
efficiency, all the,
Yeah.
and all of that would build to a new motion that we would vote on.
Right.
Okay.
Jamie?
So, I understand what people are saying. The end of the motion doesn't, to me, make immediate sense. That we would do the feasibility study thing. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, I like the idea of it, but I'm not convinced it belongs in this exact motion, I suppose.
So the original motion had that in there.
I know.
Right?
Right.
So once we clear this amendment, right, we can then go back to what remains of the original motion.
Okay,
And
I
then
see.
we can entertain additional
Yeah.
amendments.
I thought we're having multiple amendments now, I'm sorry.
No.
Isn't this the only?
One
Yeah,
amendment
we
at a
have
So is
time.
that the rest of the language?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, Suzanne?
So, and this is what I'm struggling with, is I know that all of our conversations up until this point have been that Ripton for next year was gonna have 22 students, or 20 to 22 students. And then we knew some families were saying that that wasn't an educational setting that they felt was right for their child or children. But then, also having read in our wonderful Addison Independent about some feelings that the board itself has been what's caused the demise of the Ripton School by moving the 6th grade to mums. By the fact that there was a preschool there at one point, but there were too few students to hire a full-time teacher, so the preschool was moved. I'm just wondering if we're doing the same thing again to the Ripton community.
Suzanne, is this related to the?
It is because we keep changing the motion around, but I don't know how to really word the motion correctly so that it gets at what really needs to happen, because this only feels like we're just kicking the Ripton community down the road for another year, and then we could be back here all over again, asking the same question. I don't know, that's just what, I'm feeling this from the different ways we keep trying to reword this motion,
Right.
and I'm feeling uncomfortable, that's all.
Well, so,
Yes, please.
we still have the tabled
Yes.
motion of closing Ripton School.
Right.
And so
Initiating
if you
Exactly.
feel like, it may be that you just don't like this motion at all, and when it comes to that point, you would just say no, right? And it still, like, we'll be coming around to the closure, which sounds more like what you're saying as far as not kicking a decision down the road. I may be
I
misconstruing
guess
what you're
that-
saying. But rather than, I understand if you're saying all this work does not seem to be addressing what I want, especially if what you want seems more in line with the first motion, which was to close the school, right? But I feel like those who maybe aren't ready for closure and are trying to figure out where we are right now, this is the process of, okay, this part feels good, and this we need to revisit or work on.
And we have a motion, an amendment motion on the floor, which is to transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School and striking everything else, right? And so that's the motion, and we do need to deal with the motion, amendment that's on the floor.
Call to vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna state the question and make sure I keep looking up to see if Laura's hand's on. So, the question is, shall we transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25?
No. The question is,
To amend. the
are we
motion.
amending it
Yes,
to say
I'm
this?
sorry, thank you, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, the amendment motion on the floor is, do we transfer students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School, striking the rest of the original motion? Okay, everyone understand what we're voting on, the amendment that we're voting on?
Do you want to do roll call again?
Yeah.
Can you restate the question one more time?
Yes,
for
I
me,
can.
So I can listen well.
Yes, the amended motion is to strike the majority of the original motion, leaving the transfer of students to another ACSD school for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School. That's the amendment. And we'll do a roll call. And so, in this particular case, I'm gonna start with Suzanne. Or does that mess you up?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Is this where we
come
want
back
the
to me.
discussion to go?
Okay, Mary Heather?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and Steve?
Yay.
Ron?
Nay.
Yes.
Jamie?
Can I pass?
Abstain.
Are you
can
abstaining?
Abstaining or
You
you-
can come back to.
Do you want me to, yeah,
Come back to me, I can't figure it out.
okay. Jess?
Yes.
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 Yay.
Okay. Suzanne?
Laura.
Laura,
Yes.
Laura! I'm sorry, I didn't
Yes.
hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
Okay,
Suzanne?
So Suzanne and Jamie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You
Okay.
guys have it 11.
Okay. Now, we can go back. Yes, any questions?
This is a small deterrent, but there's somebody emailing us saying that the link is expired and they're trying to join the meeting.
Ellie, I'm responding. I
Okay,
got it.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, so now we go back to the original motion, which has
Our
been,
amended
You
motion.
vote on
which
the
has,
amended motion.
yes, which has now been amended to read, that we transfer students to another ACSD school for the 2025-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School. Jason?
I move to amend the motion on the floor to remove another ACSD school and replace it with Salisbury Elementary School.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so,
Laura seconded.
Laura seconded.
Laura seconded, okay. I'm just writing this down, okay? Okay, so what we have now is an amendment to replace another ACSD school with the designation of Salisbury
Community school.
Community School. And I'm just, so I
Do we
don't
need
mess
to
up.
further amend to include the 2nd through 5th grade?
So that's the amendment that's been first
And second. Okay,
and seconded.
Too late. Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Gotcha.
sorry.
That's fine.
I get confused
We
as
can
it
fix
is.
it. No, you're fine.
Okay, so discussion.
So this is addressing the question of cohort versus no cohort, opt-in versus opt-out.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, Ellie.
My question is procedural, but is there a way to have a discussion about what we would like it to say without having to amend it for every person?
You mean,
Like, I feel like, you know, he
The
just
amendment.
amended it but didn't say that one thing, and then if someone amends that, then I can say, oh, but what about this? Can we just talk about, as a group, what we would like it to say, and then
well, unfortunately,
No.
we have an amendment on the floor, right? So it can then further be amended, right?
but before the next amendment, can we talk about it without amending it first?
Yeah, so we can, before an amendment comes, we can have general, like we had earlier, we had
Okay.
discussion about the amendment as it stood. And so that could be more general, but as soon as someone amends it and the motion passes, now that has to be the direction of our focus.
And may I point out?
Yes.
The original question is not closed, so discussion could continue on
The original
on the
question.
original motion, but the reason that we use Roberts is that everybody gets a chance to make one contribution and possibly a second, but if it's an open discussion, that can lead to problems.
Be hard. Okay, Ellen.
I think I agree with the spirit of what Jason is proposing, but thinking about precedent, what you said, Steve, about trying to do things in a way that can be easily replicated, the specification by the board of the exact school, and not necessarily explaining, I don't know, there's, in the future, if we're in a situation like this, I would feel a little uncomfortable with the board, well, anyway. I sort of liked the language we had in the decision tree, which in my mind, again, sort of allowed the superintendent's office to identify the appropriate designated school. Because I think, in the future, it could just from a precedent standpoint, be a little sticky for the board to be choosing schools, even if it's on paper. Obviously, it's informed through discussion, but,
So my understanding of amendment is if you wanted to change that word, you can have an amendment on an amendment. Right, because you're not changing the intent of what he amended, you're basically, coming on top of that and saying, instead of Salisbury, a designated school, district designated school or something like that. So, procedurally, you can do that. Okay, before I call on you, I wanna
Yeah.
make sure I'm getting everybody and I keep my back to you, so I'm
No,
so
it's
sorry.
fine.
Go ahead, Mary Heather.
I guess I'm also just wondering, because in this circumstance, we don't really have policy guidance for the superintendent on this, which is why I'm kind of leaning into specifying a school. Like, we, as a board, the board made the policy about designating school attendance boundaries. That was a board decision, right? And so it seems appropriate in this case, to me anyway, I don't know, this is my line of thinking, not necessarily, since we don't have like a policy that, puts forth a roadmap for when a school is closing, this is what the superintendent shall be thinking of and shall do. We don't have that policy, so it feels like the board's responsibility to designate a school for the cohort. Until we create a policy that creates a process for that. Otherwise, I'm not sure that we've given the superintendent the tools that she would need to use to direct that cohort to the appropriate place without the board's guidance. I don't know, that's my interpretation, but
It is certainly mine, you know, I mean, you designate attendance boundary through C30 very clearly, so, and through the statutes, you know, the board is the only one with the authority to designate, so, you know, in school choice circumstances around the state, if you know, there is to be a designation, for example, in non-operating districts, then the board makes that designation. That's not something that's an operational decision. We make that happen. You need to say what that designation is. That would not be within the operational guidelines.
Okay, Steve and then Tricia.
I would point out to the board that the superintendent has come to ask us specifically for guidance on this because she does not feel that policy tells her what to do, and we are not acting in a vacuum. This has been the recommendation of the superintendent to designate Salisbury, and so I feel like we are both supporting the superintendent and we are doing what the superintendent has asked us to do in this situation. And I think that it shows support to follow that recommendation in this motion. That's why I support changing it to any designated school to Salisbury, because that is what the superintendent has asked us to do.
And
I know, I'm.
Tricia and then Steve.
So noisy. And, sorry, if this amendment were to pass, in a future amendment, should we so choose, could possibly put Salisbury Community School as the closest geographical, just as far as both designating a specific school and giving guidance down the road to this is how the decision.
But first, we need to
Right.
deal
Yes.
with the amendment that's currently on the floor,
Yes.
which basically, to recap, is to change, proposing to change, amend the amended motion on the table of transferring students to another ACSD school for the 2026 school year to be transfer students to Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year. Is how it changed the wording there, and I didn't read the rest of the sentence. Okay, Steve and then Ron.
First off, I can support most of this motion. It is hard because I know there is interest in Ripton in attending other schools. And so it is hard to completely support that. I do understand where the cohort move. I am not an educator, surrounded by people who are educators. It sounds like the cohort is very important. So I'm not quite willing to engage in that conversation, but I do wonder, and this is another conversation of, you know, is there ways to support Ripton down the line if some of the needs of people there aren't met by this decision? And what does that look like? Is there after-school opportunities or summer programs, things like that, that like, all right, maybe we can't do this, we can do this down the line.
Yeah.
And that might get to Suzanne's point earlier and, you know, kind of build some bridges up there. The other one is I do, reading C30, I do feel like there's a bit of a spot where there's a question of the decisions the board makes, are those hardships? And I think the easiest way I could boil it down is like if a bus route changed due to board decisions, does that constitute a hardship? And so like, could a situation like this constitute a hardship? I don't know if there's precedent when pre-K programs have been removed from schools. Does that then constitute a hardship, or is that just a decision that has been made operationally? So I do think, we're not gonna sort through that one tonight.
Right.
But going forward, there's definitely
Right.
a gap there that I
Right.
think we should think on.
Right.
So.
And C30 is a policy that would be, it's under discussion in the policy committee, or it was, you know, so I assume that they'll be taking that up again, so. other, okay, Ron, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
have you written down here.
So I think, yeah, I guess I have a question for Jason, about your amendment to the amendment. Or to the amendment to the motion, I think. So if the superintendent is telling us that the district's idea for what the best solution would be for these students is to stay in a cohort and to move to Salisbury, what difference does it make that we change the wording another school to Salisbury if the superintendent is going to be making the decision anyway?
Okay, Jason?
I think Mary Heather articulated it pretty well when she said that we don't have any policy in place that guides the superintendent in this decision making. So the policy we have in place is for D6. So the K1 students who were moved, that designation, there is clear policy language that says that the superintendent gets to decide and where that cohort moves together as a class. There is nothing in policy that says, that covers this other, the grades 2 through 5 for Ripton in this situation. So I think what Mary Heather said is 100% correct, that it's on us to make this determination and make this designation.
Laura, thank you.
I would just hesitate about adding designation. I know this isn't technically on the table yet, but I would hesitate to add designation about the closest geographical space, because that's gonna be kind of a C30 deal, and that's something that the policy committee is reviewing, and I think to add wording to that effect at this stage would be premature.
Jason?
I'd like to move the previous question on the amendment.
Okay, so are we all in agreement of doing that?
Can I just write down initials real quick?
Yes.
before you-
I'll read it really slow. Did you have a question, Jess?
I had a comment, is that okay?
Okay,
Before we
yes.
move? Yeah, something on my mind is just this idea of designation and designating like one specific school, and also just thinking about something Ellen mentioned, about like parents knowing what's best for their kids, and I guess because C30, it has this like hardship comment that is maybe a little gray, right? That's a subjective, like what's a hardship to one person might not be a hardship to another person. So I guess I'm just one person with one voice, but I would, as a board member, empower the superintendent to like look at the fullness of what hardship could mean to a family, if we're going to designate just one school.
That is the practice already. Yeah.
Okay, we had agreed to, go ahead and then.
Well, I guess so. I basically want to piggyback on what Jess is saying. I guess I feel like I will vote no on this particular thing. I feel like the experience of losing a school from your community is probably devastating. And maybe we don't have clear policy guidance for this. Maybe we're operating in a little bit of I don't know what the right word is, but it seems, but it does feel like the right thing to do, to even outside of a strict, I say this as someone who cares a lot about policies, and especially this one that we're talking about, but nonetheless to like consider the exceptional nature of the thing that we're talking about. And that's why I originally was advocating for an opportunity for families to have some agency and where their kids go to school in this particular case. Do I think it will destroy our ability to like educate them in the best way we can? I do not. Do I think it is like the definition of inequity? Also no. And I think it offers people and families something that they desperately need in a point when a lot of the school it's hard for people to go through this. It will be very, very hard. And I think I've heard people express the desire to make that hardship easier on them by going to a different school. Basically one of two. And I do not think, so I will be voting against the idea of designating one school in this case, because I think recognizing that hardship is an exceptional case that we should consider offering them more than one option.
Are we ready for the question? Okay, so the amendment that is on the floor to the amended motion is to change ACSD school and substitute in its place Salisbury Community School. So if we did that, the amended motion would read, transfer students to the Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School. Okay, so that's how the motion would read. All those in favor?
We're gonna do a
No,
roll.
roll
Oh, roll call, you're right, sorry. So, let's start with Jason this time?
You come back to me, Barb.
Yes.
Come back to me.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Nay, I said.
Thank you.
Nay.
Yay.
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 Laura?
Yay.
Okay. And coming back to,
Nay.
Steve is nay?
Nay.
Nay. Did we get everybody?
7 yeas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nays.
Okay, so
The
we,
yeas have it.
7 yays, and
So it is amended.
it is amended. So now,
I'm sorry, what was the count? I just didn't.
7 to 5.
7 to 5. 7
But which,
yeas.
yay and nay is sounding so similar.
7 yes,
Yeah.
5 no.
She was saying aye.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so the amended motion now reads, and then we can have discussion still on this amended motion, we would transfer students to the Salisbury Elementary School, community school, for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of future use for the Ripton Elementary School. Discussion.
It's really irritating me that I wrote the future use of the Ripton Elementary School. Cause I think it should just be the future of the Ripton School, of the Ripton Elementary School. And it's not just an editing thing, I also think that use of implies the building and, use of the school or just the future of the school speaks to more than a building. So loath to do this, but I would like to amend it to strike use of Ripton the Ripton Elementary School and just make it the future of Ripton Elementary School.
So originally, I said enable use for, so it say use, use for would be eliminated, future,
The future of the
use.
Ripton Elementary
So
School.
future of.
Just
future of, okay, that
So
wasn't it.
strike
Would
use and
you
for.
also like to
Okay.
amend to add 2nd through 5th grade students?
Should I add that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll tack on to that
Yes.
amendment.
Yeah, don't
for
read
the-
that yet.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for a,
No, before,
no,
before you
she's
do,
still
she's
working
not
on
done.
There's still
amendment.
more.
Try
She's
for
not done.
efficiency.
oh, okay.
Yes.
The future of the Ripton Elementary, before the future of the use of the, to move the,
Transfer 2nd through 5th grade students.
yes, to transfer the 2nd through 5th grade students
From Ripton Elementary
from Ripton
School.
to Salisbury Community School to allow for a feasibility study of the future of the Ripton Elementary School.
You're doing great.
Jason
I was gonna say,
We have a
we
motion.
need a second
Yes,
before
we need a
proceed.
second.
My question I wanted to be before this is on the table.
You have to be fast. I mean, that's the problem, the motion is on the table.
It is already?
Yeah.
But Ellie, you can discuss, you can make a comment.
But it's
and
not
discuss.
seconded.
It's not seconded yet. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so now we can have discussion.
Okay, so my question is there a way for us to ask for other suggestions of what this amendment might say before it's seconded and on the table? So that we can make sure it's the final one, and we don't have to do this again.
It's,
No, there was a second already on it.
yeah, it's hard to do that because once you pass
That-
one, it causes folks to maybe think of something else.
It turns into a discussion, which is.
Well, and it's, yeah, and somebody may be agreeable to part of it, but not the whole thing. So
This is
you
how
have
the
to,
sausage
you
gets
have to
made.
peel the onion, I'm afraid. So, here's what I have. There's amendment, to the amended motion on the floor to have it read, transfer the second through fifth grade Ripton Elementary School students to the Salisbury Elementary School for the community school, sorry.
She doesn't like that word, community.
I know, what's wrong with me? The Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year, year to enable a feasibility study of future,
The future.
of the future of the Ripton Elementary School.
For the future.
For the,
Yeah,
so, use for goes away, that's of now,
no,
of future,
study for, so I have for the future of the Ripton Elementary School. A feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School.
You can have Mary Heather just read it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. The amended motion, transfer the second through fifth grade students from Ripton Elementary School to the Salisbury Community School for the 2025-2026 year to enable a feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School.
Okay,
That's what I have.
thank you. Discussion. We have a first and a second.
Ron's got his hand up.
Ron? And,
Somebody else, I
no,
don't know
that's
who that
not-
is, okay.
yeah.
So, since we've taken the word use out of the amendment, I kind of have a question about that, actually. So, maybe this is just kind of a philosophical question for us to think about as we consider this, but, I guess, again, as I asked earlier, how would Ripton be using this? And is it even up to us to decide what should be done with that building, essentially?
So while you own the building, you have the full responsibility of determining how the building is utilized. The feasibility study, as I would understand it, would take into account school district options. For example, it could be used for something other than traditional K through 5 schooling. Whether or not they're, at a future date, we would see grades K through 5 or pre-K or any other grades, that would be traditional in nature, being in the school. Or whether or not the best use of the building would in fact be a community use rather than a school district use at all. So I would imagine each of those three options would be something that would be considered in a feasibility study as such as might be referenced here. Maybe there are more, but those are the three that come to mind.
But if I can follow up? But so the alternate solution, which would be kind of proceeding with the process of closing the school, would then result in the town of Ripton being able to purchase that land back for $1. Am I understanding that correctly? And then deciding in their own way democratically what to do with that piece of land and that building?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Additional discussion. Are we ready for the question?
No, sorry. I gotta copy the,
She's, yes.
just give me a moment.
No, take your time.
Gesundheit.
Much better than what's.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and so I may need your help on
Yep,
this
no
last
problem.
sentence. Okay, it now reads, transfer the second through the fifth Ripton Elementary School students to the Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study of the future of,
For the future
for the future.
of the Ripton Elementary School.
Thank you. Let me do that again. Transfer the second through fifth Ripton Elementary School students to the Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School. Okay? So, are we ready for the question?
Yes, let's do a roll
Okay,
call again.
we're gonna do roll call again, are you ready? So in this time, let's just start with Jason again.
Yes.
Yes.
Come back to me.
Yes.
Come back to me, please.
Okay, Emily,
Yes.
Ron,
Come back to me, please.
okay, Steve,
Aye.
Mary Heather,
Yes.
and Laura?
Yes.
Okay, Steve,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Okay. Gee, so now, we have an amended motion that we can now have discussion on. The motion now reads, that's on the table, transfer the second through fifth Ripton Elementary students to the Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School. So that, now it's open for discussion. Yes, Ellie.
Are we, guaranteeing the parents of the kids that they can stay in the elementary school they're transferred to for the rest of their elementary school time?
That would be the assumption unless the board makes a decision deliberately otherwise.
Jess.
I guess I'm not asking anyone in particular, but folks, after we did the amendment about which school we designated, some people voted no, so I guess I'm just curious if it was more on principle or if it was because there was a different specific school that they wanted to also have designated. Also, no one has to answer that, but I'm just, that's interesting to me. Yeah.
But I can answer that. Just, there's no principle for me. I mean, it's just like, I just believe that this case calls for some flexibility and some more agency than this amendment, this motion grants people. That's all. And I'm for more of that. And so therefore, that's why I changed or I voted the way I did.
Any other discussion? Go ahead,
Can I just
Jess.
ask a clarifying question, not to you, Jamie? When I said principal, I guess it's designating period. It's not designating Salisbury specifically. That's
Yeah.
in my head is where I'm at. So I don't know if anyone else is or has more to say, but
Are we ready for the question? So we are now voting on the amended motion to transfer the 2nd through 5th Ripton Elementary School students to the Salisbury Community School for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School. So now we are going to do a roll call vote on that, and Laura, I'm gonna have you start.
Yay.
Jason?
Yes.
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 Yep. Yes.
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 Okay. So the motion passes
Unanimously.
unanimously, which is awesome. Okay, Jason.
Yes, I would like to move the previously tabled motion back onto the table.
Okay. And can I have a second to do that?
Second.
All those in
Who
favor?
seconded?
Tricia. All those in favor of moving the tabled original motion back onto the floor for discussion, please indicate by saying aye. And again, we'll do a roll call. Laura?
Wait, can we discuss it?
Yeah,
Okay, right.
But,
we're just bringing it back.
yeah,
Yeah.
Don't we discuss
we're
it
not
before we
ready
vote on
to
it?
vote.
We're not
yet.
voting on the motion, we're
just
voting
whether
whether
we're
we're
bringing
going
it
to
back.
bring
We're
it back.
voting on whether we bring it back.
On the table.
Are
on
we
the
ready to, are
Bring
we
it
ready
back.
to talk about it again?
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. We're not voting on it. We're voting to bring it back for discussion.
Because
Okay, so Laura?
Aye.
Jason?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
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 Okay, so we've now brought back the original motion, which which read, initiate the process of closure of the Ripton Elementary School per Article 14. Okay, and so discussion.
So I just think that we should not have this vote and discussion tonight, and that we've attended to the matter at hand that we needed to, and that we should put this on a future meeting where we're gonna talk about the closure specifically. And in the future, when we have more information about what the state's doing, might not be a discussion we have to have at all.
Okay. Tricia?
So procedurally, we either vote yay or nay to this night, or you're suggesting, would it be tabling for a future meeting? Is that the official
We could do that.
Robert's rules?
Yeah, we could do that,
'Cause
yeah.
I have a concern that if we voted no, which was kind of, I'd like to not make a decision on this night, if we say no, then isn't the decision then made that we're not gonna, and would we then be able to bring it up later?
Yes, we
Yes.
can always bring it up later. You can
Yeah,
always bring it
you
up
can-
later,
So I
yeah,
don't want it to be like
right,
a done discussion, I just don't think that
Right.
it needs to be decided on tonight.
right. So, yeah, by voting on it now, it would basically just close this motion out, and that doesn't mean that 6 months from now, a year from now, we don't vote on it again, if it failed.
And what would tabling look like in the future?
I
Like, would
guess
it
it-
automatically come?
We would have to bring it back,
Okay.
yeah. It's probably cleaner, I'm thinking to, yes, Suzanne?
When you table a motion, you can also table it for a period of time.
Yeah.
So you can say, I'd like to table this motion until our May first, the first meeting in
Okay.
May.
Okay.
At which point, it would show up on the agenda as a motion that needs to be finished.
Right. Steve?
The only reason that I would caution the board from walking away from this is not a slow process. The Article 14 is very specific, and there are steps that we need to follow. If we put this off, we basically, the clock is starting to tick, and we are less than a year from the next town meeting day. And to be able to do the studies and to give the information to the community that Article 14 requires takes some time. And if we don't initiate that process now, we may not be able to get it done for the 26-27 school year. If we don't do this tonight, and it seems like we're not going to do that, we need to address this soon, because the articles are very specific about what we can and can't do, and if it has to go before the voters, that has to happen before town meeting day. So,
Jason, and then Steve.
I think it's disingenuous for us to say that we're gonna study feasibility and then vote to close, so I would not be in favor of voting to close Ripton School tonight.
And Steve?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of another layer of kind of trauma in this. I think with the decisions we've already made, there's going to be people that are unhappy, people that are frustrated. The reality is there's a bunch of youngsters that will be attending a different school than they thought they were attending. Keep in mind, these are also children that went through COVID, masks and all that, and had schools closed, and so, these are some kids that have already come up through some challenges, and so I'm not in favor of having this conversation tonight at all.
Okay, Ellie.
I already spoke with, I just want to bring up too that I know, I don't understand yet, but I know that we touched on it briefly about the possible funds that a community might get if their school is closed by the state, and I would not want to do anything that would further jeopardize Ripton's, the possibility of them getting that funds to use the school building. So I'd need to know the specifics about that before I'd be ready to vote on this.
Okay, at this time, we do have a motion on the floor, which is to initiate the process of closure per Article 14 of the Ripton Elementary School, and that's what we're discussing. So that motion is currently on the table. Are we ready for the question? Okay. All those in favor of,
I think
Roll call.
roll call,
please.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, the motion that we'll be voting on is to initiate the process of closure per Article 14 of the Ripton Elementary School. And Jason, we'll start with you.
No.
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 Nope.
yes.
Mary Heather
No.
No, and Laura.
and Laura.
No.
Okay. So the motion fails. Okay. At this point, we have made a decision to transfer the students to the Ripton Elementary School, the 2nd through 5th grade students, to the Salisbury Elementary School, community school, for the 25-26 school year to enable a feasibility study for the future of the Ripton Elementary School. Any other motions that we need to?
I guess I'm thinking that it might be appropriate for us to make a motion to direct the superintendent to initiate the process of a feasibility study. I think we need to, we shouldn't leave that hanging. So I guess I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't know whether it's more appropriate for us to direct a committee to look at this or to have the superintendent do some initial work. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I don't want to leave the building tonight without having some kind of action on this feasibility study.
It would actually be helpful to me if, you know, with all due respect to your need to make sure we're attending to things, if that's something that I could include in the superintendent's report on the April 14th meeting, that way, you know, I could sort of reach out, understand how that's being completed, and maybe come to the board with a recommendation, if that's
Does that
an
sound good
appropriate
to everyone?
timeline.
Yeah. So you're just saying leave it until.
No action tonight, let me
Okay.
get some information is what I'm
Yeah.
proposing, and then I'll come back on the 14th with specific information about that.
Ella?
Yeah, I think an ability to process in advance would be really helpful, and just to say it, the policy committee of old had wanted to come to the board and ask for us as a board to direct the superintendent to and administrators to create a process of engaging around C30 and school configurations. So knowing that these are maybe on slightly different timelines now, but I'm just remembering that as a larger conversation we had hoped to be having. A lot of that gets scuttled by the state discussions, but I just want that sort of out there for people to be thinking about, because there's so many questions about the future of our district. So I think it would be really helpful to sort of process and absorb before we decide on what a feasibility study might look like, but to bear in mind there are bigger questions to be included in this as well, not to lose Ripton at all as a focus for this one, but not to have it be disconnected from others as well.
Okay, does that give you enough time?
Yep.
Yep, okay, great. Any other, yes, Ron?
I wonder if we can come up with some ideas for how to continue having a discussion with the community in Ripton about what they think would be the best thing to do. I know that the process for closing does have some of those kind of venues for the town and the board to discuss those, and I wonder if we can, I mean, first of all, we have a second public comment period coming up in a moment, but I think, to me, that feels like the most important thing at this point.
Yeah, and so you'll take that under consideration as she comes back with her recommendation. Yeah. Okay,
Barb,
yes,
I-
Steve.
I agree, I would definitely be interested in having that conversation around, you know, busing, after-school programs, summer
Yep.
opportunities, anything like that. I also did want to respond to Jess's earlier question about why the change in vote. The reason I changed my vote is so that hopefully our superintendent does not face a similar fall to like what we faced this year. And so in an effort to try to avoid that, that was the reason. And I've been sitting with it for a while, and I wanted to provide that. Last fall was a challenging time, and so that's, just I want to put that out there.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, the next agenda item is the second public comment period. And once again, we invite the public to provide public comment. And again, you know, if so, limit it to 3 minutes. So is there anyone in the room that would like to make public comment? Okay, so if you could state your name and address, you know, us with what your comment is.
I'm Jamie Kamick. I am a parent up in Ripton. I currently have a 4th grader and a 1st grader. I have 5 kids, so I'm impacted across the board. Just several mini comments. The way that you worded the motion to talk about agency and compassion towards the families in Ripton, that means a lot. And to be able to have some degree of voice in what happens with our kids, when the fact is, equity speaking, Ripton is the only one that's on the table about closing. And the other parents aren't being put up against that. So the fact that even there is the question of whether or not it's equitable to give parents a choice of Mary Hogan or Salisbury, neither of those are our first choice. But being able to have an option
that compassion, that agency that you guys have talked about really matters. The discussion of Salisbury being the geographic best school. Mary Hogan is 8.6 miles from the Ripton Elementary School, and the Salisbury School is 9.2. So I would really ask that the board get the facts straight before you vote, because it doesn't make sense what you guys are voting on if you don't even have the basic numbers. And there was a comment earlier about the failure of the school to meet standards for the number of students that are there. While that might be the textbook wording for it, that feels really harsh, especially when pre-K, K1 and 6 were all taken from us. That's not compassion forward to use that kind of wording. That's all.
Lori Cox from Ripton. I want to thank you for having a good discussion about all of this. I wish we had more kids. I can't do much about that. But I do know that we would like to have real engagement about what goes on in the building, and hope that that can happen because it's important. So, yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone online?
Two people with their Zoom hand up and two people made a Zoom question that we can ask if they want to make a comment. So,
Okay.
Susanna?
Good night, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Good night, everyone. So, my name is Susanna. I'm currently parent of 2 students at Ripton. Next year will be 1 student at Ripton. And I understand that this is not only for the district, but for parents, for staff, for students, an important decision to make. And I do believe that there are standards that we need to follow. But as a parent, I want to put my comment out there because I know that there's other parents that might relate, and it might change something. I don't know. So my thing is, I understand when it comes to designate 1 school for the whole school because it's better to keep it as a group because they will have friends. So that will make, I don't know, the process of transition better, if that makes sense. For example, my daughter, she has a little bit of anxiety when it comes to open to other people, so that would be a huge transition for her. But when it comes to decide if it's going to be with parents' decision or opinion where the kids go to or to where it's designated to, I do feel like the parents should have a word on it because, for example, I will have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and I have 2 pre-K kids. So the location for me, and I live in Ripton, the location for me to transport, I know that there's buses that will be provided if that's going to be the move. But when it comes to after school programs, sports and everything, this will be a hassle, a bigger hassle, because I will have everybody situated in one place in Middlebury, and I have to go all the way to Salisbury just to come back because of 1 kid that in 2 years will be in middle school. So, I mean, I do feel like the families that this is going to affect should have a word on it, because I do understand too that when we make a decision like this and we make requests like I previously did about changing my daughter to Middlebury, we do think about the transportation issue. And for me, even if it wasn't provided a bus, just because I decided for her to go to Mary Hogan, I already thought about it, but since I have the kids in that area, that would make it easier for me instead of have to be back and forth. So I do think that opening the option of the parents decide what works best for their families will be easier down the line than just now trying to figure it out, what we're going to do as the whole school. Because what might work for some, it might not work for everybody. So I just wanted to put my comment out there, and I don't know if it's going to change anything, but this is my thought and my comment as a parent of Ripton kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I see there's a
There had been
hand up in the
someone
middle, but that's been there for,
That's the person who just talked.
okay.
So Chris Kimmick made a comment in the Q&A in Zoom. So Chris, if you're wanting to make a public comment, now's the time. I'll just unmute Chris in case he wants to jump in.
Yeah, just echoing the comment with regards to, so Ripton parent, Jamie's husband, yeah, we've got 5 kids, and so high school, middle school, North Branch, elementary school, similar to the comment just made about having choice in where we end up, even if it's by exception, I don't know, but there's definitely multiple layers of the logistics, hauling folks around and trying to keep up with things.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Any other comments? Jason?
No one else with their hand raised, no other Q&A.
Okay.
Oh, we have one
Okay,
over
I
here,
am
right
so
over here.
sorry. Yes,
I would like to
would
ask.
you,
Can you state
can
your
you
name?
state your name?
Harlan from Ripton. Probably most of you know that. I'm curious how that geographic location was decided. Because one of the things I came to say was that exact thing. Mary Hogan is, as you would travel, closer to Ripton than Salisbury is. Of course, it makes more sense to send our students to Salisbury because they don't have the numbers Mary Hogan does. But if we're talking geographically, then it is Mary Hogan, which just adds to Mary Hogan's issues. So I'm curious how the geography is decided.
Typically, this isn't a Q&A, but
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but
it's
you,
an easy clarification, you know, I think the comment that I made might be the one you're thinking about, which is that the standard in this case takes geographic location into account. It's one of the things it takes into account, and so, you know, the commute times are not that different from each other in that sense, but it still allows Salisbury to be the place that is it meets the standard relative to where the students would be designated in an evacuation circumstance, in other circumstances relative to their ability to take all students, you know, without question, their geographic proximity, busing access, limited access to secondary students on similar buses, and a number of other things. One thing I also might just point out is that the staff at Salisbury Community School is well aware of the challenges that would be inherent in this kind of transition, and is thinking very deeply about how to make that done well and meaningfully in this case. And so, you know, that's just a point to make, you know, in this circumstance, in thinking about the well-being of the kids in Ripton. So,
And I do have, that was one thing I had to ask. And I do appreciate all the time that you guys are all just community members of ours and you have taken your time to be on this board and to make these decisions. But as someone in Ripton, and my children are done, but this is so important to our community that the majority of the conversation tonight was so clinical that it was absolutely infuriating. I've seen people shaking, my phone is blowing up with people from Ripton texting me with what's going on, and I like, oh yeah, just Salisbury. Like, yeah, obviously let's just send those kids. Like, did anybody think that, like, most of the people probably work in Middlebury and that's where they're going? So they've moved or lived forever in Ripton and they've planned for their kids to go to this school forever, and now they're being moved. And Salisbury is a lovely school with lovely staff. My son went to many things there when he was at RES. But it doesn't make any sense for the majority of our kids to go there when their parents work in Middlebury, when their siblings are going to middle school and high school. And you heard most of the parents talk about this 2 weeks ago in Ripton. And now it's like, oh well, it's fine, whatever they said. Again, doesn't matter. We're gonna just vote to send them to Salisbury. So I just feel like, we can talk about agency all day long, but Ripton lost its agency when Act 46 took place and this district was formed. We haven't had agency since then, and I don't know a single parent there or person in the community who feels that we do. And I just want that on the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like there's another hand on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to
Could you
comment,
state your name, please? Could
or
you
respond to something you said about well-being.
Can I
And the well-
interrupt just a second? Could you just please state your name for the record and town?
Yeah. Samantha Eisenberger, Ripton.
Thank you.
I just in response to the well-being, you keep using the word well-being of the families of the students. Well, I guess of the students, and a lot of the well-being of the student is dependent on the well-being of the family. And a decision like this to spread out the families in a way that just complicates and has less resource available and opportunity for the parent to be more present at home and more present at the school that their child attends is really concerning, and that does not promote well-being, in my opinion. So it's just, if you want to use the word well-being, like, please consider the whole family.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room or on Zoom? If not, then we'll close out the second public comment period. Moving to board reflections, is there board reflections? Yes.
I'll make a reflection. I'm frustrated with this meeting tonight, and I really wish that we could find a way to have real meaningful discussions that are not just motion wordsmithing sessions. And I don't know, maybe we could talk about that in the future, about how to have these conversations in a real way that is genuine.
Steve?
I wanted to make a comment that I appreciated how well the board chair ran this meeting and followed Robert's rules to the best of her ability, and that it made a difficult topic, although some people may have seen that it sounded clinical, it was necessary to move us through this business. So I appreciate the actions of the board chair.
Thank you.
Jess? I think I'm also feeling a little frustrated and, well, I do think I appreciated everyone's discussion and the energy that they brought to the meeting. Yeah, just feeling like there could have been space for, to really like bust open that designation question in a way that, I personally didn't know it needed to be busted open. Yeah, feels like a missed opportunity for that. Like it, you know, we were kind of like in a binary spot about like open designation or Salisbury. And I think maybe that was a blind spot on our part as a board.
Anyone else? Jamie?
Yeah, I'll second the the frustration. I came here with a lot of, I was late because I messed up the time. But I also wonder if it was some sort of unconscious thing because I was dreading this. And from the very moment we started, I felt like we were a little just trapped or hemmed in. It's sort of what Ellie was saying, unable to have a conversation that the topic warrants. And I understand, or I don't, but I understand the need for Robert's rules and the machinations of it. I do, I respect that, I appreciate it. But I also think that, you know, the public perception of the way we came to the decision is incredibly important. And I, you know, I'm obviously not in full agreement with the decision we came to, but I, you know, I worry that how we came to the decision, as sort of stilted as it felt, will sort of color the amount of forethought that has gone into this, I know from a lot of us. And so I feel, I think you said, Jess, sort of a missed opportunity.
Anyone else want to make an observation?
Ellen has her hand up.
Yes, Ellen.
I think for a board that is very concerned with equity, people should spend some time reading some really thoughtful writing that's been put out there about the patriarchal, white culture that Robert's Rules of Order promotes, which does stifle discussion. The argument that it is the only way to have a civilized, complicated conversation and decision-making, I think is overly simplistic. And I think it absolutely is something that we should be thinking about how it can hinder hard decision-making through conversation and discussion.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, I would move for adjournment. Can I have a motion?
Will we adjourn?
A second? All those in favor?
Aye.